Picture, if you will, a cabin in the middle of nowhere. There's no phone line, there's no cable, and the nearest fiber connection is 3 towns over. That means no YouTube, no doom scrolling, not even friggin' email. For decades, the only way to get that cabin online was to beam its internet through space. The only problem was, it was miserable. Then almost overnight, satellite internet got good. Like low lag, ranking up to platinum good. So what changed? And if space internet is suddenly this good, why are we still burying cables in the dirt like cavemen hiding the shiny rocks they found? At its heart, getting internet from space is just a game of catch. Your dish throws data up to a satellite, the satellite throws it down to a ground station, and that station sends it to the same series of tubes everyone else uses. And for incoming data, it's just the same thing in reverse. I don't know, it sounds like a great setup, as long as you don't think too hard about the insane distances involved. See, the old approach was to park those satellites incredibly high up, about 36,000 kilometers, in what's called geostationary orbit. This involves a satellite traveling at a speed that matches the Earth's rotation. So from our perspective, it's basically stationary, making it easy to aim a dish at. The downside? That height is exactly what made old satellite internet so painful to use.
At the speed of light, the radio signals going back and forth to geostationary take a long time, right? Fractions of a second. And so you notice that when you're trying to, do gaming or something with a mouse.
That's Jonathan McDowell, an independent astrophysicist who catalogs every satellite launch in his newsletter, Jonathan's Space Report, reporting on what goes into space. And the lag he's talking about is exactly why the newest networks, SpaceX's Starlink, chief among them, tried the opposite of going high. They dropped way down low to about 550 kilometers.
So the move towards low orbit, high bandwidth satellites has provided an internet that has less lag, more power, more signal, but at the cost that, because these satellites are so low, they don't stay above the horizon very long. They're going around the Earth in 90 minutes. And so you need an enormous number of these satellites, whereas for the geostationary systems, you just needed 2 or 3. And so now the leading constellation is SpaceX's Starlink at the moment, and that has over 10,000 satellites in orbit, which is 10 times more than the total number of active satellites a decade ago.
See, the closer a satellite orbits, the faster it has to move to stay up there. So your dish isn't locked onto one satellite sitting still overhead. It's tracking a relay race of thousands, handing your signal off to the next one as they tear past. So you got faster satellite internet, sweet, but for most of what you actually do online, raw speed doesn't actually matter as much as ping, aka latency, aka how long each little back and forth takes. And that's the thing low orbit actually improved. Although it isn't perfect. Every once in a while there's a less than flawless handoff. Plus, there's the weather to worry about. Heavy rain can scatter the signal. Most installers call it rain fade, which I think is pretty cool. And snow on the dish? That's even worse. Which loops us right back to where we started.
If satellite good, why put cable in ground?
Well, as we're about to learn, it comes down to a problem no engineer has yet been able to solve. Not even after checking out our sponsor. Odoo, running a business shouldn't have you stretched out like some kind of Chili's Appy Platter cheese pull. Odoo is a business management software that keeps every app you need integrated into one easy-to-use platform. There's no need to keep 10 tabs open for different things like invoicing, email marketing, accounting, etc. With Odoo, just choose which tools best serve your business, customize the interface, and start saving time. And if you only use one app with Odoo, it's totally free. What? Get started with a 15-day trial or book a demo with our link below. No credit card required. That unsolved problem is capacity. A satellite can only beam down so much data at once, and everyone underneath it is splitting that same limited supply. Crowd too many users in there, and they all slow down together. Meanwhile, fiber optic internet cables play in a completely different league. A single strand carries a frankly absurd amount of data. And if you ever need more, you just light up another color of laser in the same glass, or just lay another strand. There's so much headroom that your neighbors all being online barely registers. But there's another huge reason to keep digging them holes, and it's one that Starlink would prefer you not dwell on too much. Because, well, how should I put this? The sky isn't falling yet, it's just running out of room. McDowell doesn't just count these satellites, he tracks the near misses between them, and it sounds less like the final frontier than a highway with no lanes.
There are tens of thousands of avoidance maneuvers a year of satellites in low Earth orbit, changing their orbits to make sure they don't bump into some other satellite. And so we're flying sort of safely right now, but at the cost of this really complex system that's a bit fragile. If you stopped doing the avoidance maneuvers, there's some scientists who calculated this thing they call the crash clock, which is if you stop doing the avoidance maneuvers, how long is it going to be before satellites start hitting each other in a big bumper car kind of way? And the answer now is about 3 days.
3 days after we hypothetically stopped playing space traffic cops, we'd be faced with a real Sandra Bullock in space situation. And it's not hypothetical. Back in 2009, 2 communication satellites slammed together, scattering thousands of pieces of debris that are still hurtling around the globe. So much for space is empty. Up there it's rush hour, except nobody can brake, and the fender benders happen at 17,000 miles an hour. And it's about to get a lot busier. McDowell watches the whole industry, not just one constellation, and the growth he's tracking is hard to wrap your head around.
We are having many more satellite launches than ever before, many more satellites in orbit. Again, from 1,000 10 years ago to 15,000 today, and that we're expecting to go to 100,000 in the next decade. There's just this constant capital investment in the orbital system to maintain it, to keep it up to date, that is just mind-boggling.
So, no, satellites won't outmuscle fiber, and they can't blanket the whole planet without risking catastrophe. So what is satellite internet actually for then? Well, it's for anywhere that fiber can't reach because it's too expensive or flat out impossible. A farm at the end of a 20-kilometer dirt road, a cargo ship in the middle of the Pacific, a jet at 38,000 feet, or a disaster zone where the cable's just washed away. In those places, it isn't the worst option you settle for, it's the only option. And now, it's finally a good one. So the real answer was never satellites versus fiber, it's both, each covering ground, or space, the other can't, while tens of thousands of new satellites keep climbing into a sky that's getting awfully crowded and full of messy bright streaks instead of a field of inspiring stars. It's just unfortunate that this new option comes at the expense of our beautiful starry night sky, which astronomers are now struggling to catch a glimpse of through the new obnoxious mess of bright streaks. Anyway, if you want the other half of this internet story, the wires that still carry almost all of the world's internet, including the ones lying on the ocean floor, our Undersea Cables video shows you the hidden backbone holding it all together.